very new movies. Specifically, we are celebrating the 75th anniversary in October of 2025 of All About Eve, the classic Best Picture Oscar-winning film about personal betrayal in the world of New York theater. And I have a very exciting panel here to join me to discuss this. First up, we have Zev Burrows. How are you doing this week, Zev?
I'm okay. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. We also have joining us Cameron Shaw. How are you doing, Cameron?
I'm doing okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing real good, real good. And last and certainly not least, we have fresh from a stay in the hospital here to join us. So thank you very much for coming out and finding it within you to be with us. Brian Fowler, how are you doing, Brian?
I'm recovering.
For sure.
Best way I can put it. I'm much better than when I was, at a risk of death a little over a week ago.
I mean, that is ideal to not be at immediate risk of death. So
yeah, yes. Glad you're here.
We're very, very glad you're feeling better. Very glad you have decided to rejoin the world through us, which seems very, very generous of you. So we are going to eventually get to talking about those two movies. Before we get to that point, we do have our movie roundtable where we discuss the movies that we've seen lately. And I know we have a couple of 2025 releases, one very new 2025 release that is like the big cinephile movie right now. And Cameron, I believe you saw that. So what did you bring to the table this week?
I did. So last night, in fact, I saw One Battle After Another. I have not 100% put together all my thoughts on it because, I got home at 11 o'clock. It's a long movie. But I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to say it's my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I'm very up and down on his movies. I think my favorite is Punch Drunk Love, which is probably controversial for a lot of people. But
I don't know if it's controversial, but I will say it's my least favorite.
I know, and
I love Punch Drunk Love. Might be the only Adam Sandler movie I like.
I feel similarly. It's not the only one, but yeah, I think it may be my favorite Adam Sandler movie. Anyway, but we're not here to talk about Punch Drunk Love. One Battle After Another I was glad that I hadn't read anything about it ahead of time. Not that there's huge plot twists or anything to be expected, and I'm going to kind of speak vaguely because I don't want to ruin anything for anybody who hasn't seen it, as I know it's as you said, a cinephile. It's a big one for the cinephiles this year. Yes. I really appreciated not knowing what was going to happen. And it felt like a very fresh kind of story to me.
Can you at least spoil, because I haven't seen this movie either, are there multiple battles, and do they happen in sequence?
Not direct sequence, but yes, there is, in fact, one battle after another.
All right, good. So the title is not lying.
The title is not lying. And it actually made me very interested to read the book that it was based on. I really disliked Inherent Vice, the movie. I have not read the book. And so I was hesitant going into this about another kind of half adaptation of a Thomas Pynchon novel. And this one made me want to read that book. So, maybe it's just...
It's based on Vineland, correct?
Yes. Which I don't know much about. As I said, I didn't really know what I was getting into going into this story. So I was very excited at the end of this movie. There is one scene in particular, and by the way, I apologize, I have a kitten meowing behind me. If you can hear that. There's one scene in particular towards the end in a car that was to me, cinematographically really exciting. The way it was shot, the location they chose, it was great. So that made me very happy. Have any of you guys seen this?
Not yet. I was in the hospital.
Sure, understandably. You have not
I do want to see it, but
yeah,
this week didn't turn into seeing movies.
Yeah, I saw it in 70 millimeter with my brother, which meant driving across the bridge to Oakland, and it was worth it for that. So, yeah. Anyway, I recommend it.
Yeah.
Zev, have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay.
I hope to catch up with it before screener season, but
Sure.
we'll see.
It
We'll
is
see how-
long.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm someone who struggles with Paul Thomas Anderson films that don't have Daniel Day-Lewis in them, so I'm not like excited to see this. I am glad you specifically contrasted it to Inherent Vice, because that, I think, is probably my second least favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film. So the knowledge that it's not a retread of that is very good to hear.
Yeah, I had no use for that movie when I saw it. I mean, I went with a friend, and if I hadn't gone with a friend, I might have just left. Like,
wow.
I hated it. So, and I was really hesitant to like go back to Paul Thomas Anderson, honestly, after that, because I felt like he was going off a cliff. And I know Inherent Vice is many people's favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movies. So, it takes all kinds to discuss a director. But Phantom Thread fixed things for me.
Sure.
And yeah.
Well, this is amazing then, because it means the only film that multiple people on this panel have seen is your 2025 release, Seven. And why don't you tell us about it?
So I'm taking a break from my Criterion Challenge, as well as my ongoing Orson Welles binge, to bring us the not latest DreamWorks animation production, Dogman, which came out way back in January. I know I'm late because they've already released Bad Guys 2, and I think they have another one that is...
There have been 2 DreamWorks films, because since Bad Guys 2 was Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie.
That's right. I mean, it's just like DreamWorks is just like, we're just like, hold up, DreamWorks, slow down. But at the same time, I noted this in my Wild Robot review, they are now probably the most consistently interesting mainstream American animation studio. And I wasn't a huge fan of the Wild Robot. I thought it was okay. And this one I also thought was strictly okay. It is based on a comic strip by Dave Pilkey, who is also most well known for writing the Captain Underpants books, of which I was a big fan when I was younger. This involves a police officer and his dog, who are chasing a villainous cat named Petey, who just likes to cause ruckus because that's what cats voiced by Pete Davidson for some reason like to do.
Or cats in general, really.
Or cats in general. But I was like, Pete Davidson voicing this cat makes me as uncomfortable maybe as any voice casting decision DreamWorks has ever come up with. It's like, I don't...
You see, I feel to me, because I have seen this movie, I see all the important films, not like the new Paul Thomas Anderson. I feel like Pete Davidson playing an unnecessarily belligerent, obnoxious cat who's just a jerk for no earthly reason other than he likes it, is the first time that Pete Davidson's casting has felt like it benefited a character to me.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I would agree that it benefited a character, but it makes sense. I will say that. I don't know if that's a backhanded compliment or not. But the police officer accidentally gets killed in the process, and the head of his dog is transplanted onto his body, hence Dogman. And he goes about the task of trying to stop Petey, but Petey always escapes and decides to make a clone of himself. The problem is that this new clone has no interest in being evil and takes a liking to Dogman and vice versa. And, hijinks play out, sweet things play out. There's a reporter voiced by Isla Fisher that also makes a little bit of an appearance. Animation-wise, it still keeps doing interesting things that DreamWorks had been developing since Captain Underpants and would go further with Puss in Boots, Last Wish, definitely. So I feel like they're continuing to push consistently interesting things visually, outside from the Spider-Verse movies, in American animation, certainly more than Pixar and Disney are doing, and maybe more than any other American mainstream animation studio. Did I have fun with it? Kind of. Would I recommend it? Kind of. If there is a sequel, I just hope that they don't do some terrible AI where they recreate the Soundgarden song Spoon Man with Dog Man. Otherwise, I will have to, I don't know, boycott DreamWorks or something. Sure. But I'm going on a tangent right now.
Yeah, I will say, just real quick, because I did see this movie, I liked DreamWorks Captain Underpants. I think it's a very successful version of the thing that it is, and I was kind of looking forward to this, because it was clearly not just following up the same author, but it was a stylistic follow-up. I don't think it's quite as like, I don't want to say ambitious. It doesn't have as many ingredients as Captain Underpants had, but I think it's good at doing the thing that it's trying to do. And I would say, and it sounds like we had a similar path stuff. I found The Wild Robot to be okay. I think The Wild Robot is trying to do more and not succeeding at all of it, whereas I think Dogman is trying to do very little and succeeding at most of it.
For sure. I do want to backpedal a little bit, because I have not read the Dogman series as much as I have Captain Underpants, but what I can say is the comic strip, the comic books of Captain Underpants certainly give us more. There are a lot more ingredients to it, and I'm just wondering if Dogman has even remotely close to the same kinds of ingredients, and my guess is no, because I don't think anything that Pilkey has done has had that kind of prominence or success.
Sure.
So
I am the opposite. I have read more Dogman books by virtue of having nephews who are currently the right age for those books than I have Captain Underpants. And they all the books sort of feel the same. I haven't read all of them, but they kind of follow the same pattern of, dastardly cat does something and the dog has to save the world. Or not the world, but whatever land
some
they live
quadrant
in.
of the world.
Yes. And what I really like about those books is the art style. So I'm curious if the animation continues with that style. Like
I think it's based on, obviously it's animated, not drawn, but I think it's based on.
Okay. I did not see this movie, but I don't hate the Dogman books as much as they become a little cumbersome to read to a kid who can read to themselves. But they're kind of fun, and I know Captain Underpants was fun too. So I think Dave Pilkey is, he somehow got his finger on the pulse of 9-year-old boys.
He's a massively successful children's author. I do know that.
Yeah. So I would not hesitate to see this if I were with my nephews and they wanted to throw it on. I'd be down.
That is fair.
Yeah.
That is fair. Well, I'm going to take us back in time, courtesy of a Patreon supporter. This is actually our very own Andrew Milne, known to those of you who listen to the podcast as a repeated guest star of the show. And Andrew, in his capacity as a Patreon, he gave me a present. Like a lot of the Patreon reviews are like, find this obscure thing that's streaming on like one weird Russian site with bad subtitles. Andrew had me watch John Woo's The Killer, and I've seen John Woo's The Killer before. It's really good. I just get to talk for a few minutes about how really good The Killer is. For those of you who have not seen it, which I gather is all three of my colleagues on the show today, this is not John Woo's first big film. He had already done the first two A Better Tomorrows by this point. And it is kind of the film that he and producer Tsui Hark made together based on the enormous success of The Better Tomorrow, the first one especially. And I believe it is the end of their working relationship because they got along horribly. They wanted to make basically two very different movies, and the film that exists is kind of a compromise of their two worldviews in ways that I think are pretty darn successful. So this is basically a hitman Zhang, played as in many John Woo films of this period, the lead is played by Chow Yun-fat, the great Hong Kong action star. He has been hired to do a job that goes wrong, and not goes wrong, he succeeds in killing only his target, but while executing this target, he inadvertently blinds a nightclub singer named Jenny, who is played by an actress named Sally Ye. And he feels so awful that he's been responsible for ruining the life of this young woman who had nothing to do with his mission. He has decided he is going to do one last job, and that last job is going to be to acquire enough money to pay for Jenny's eye surgery so she can see again. And so he takes a job killing a mob boss, a triad boss. But what he does not realize is that he's actually been set up to fail, essentially. Like, the people who hired him to kill this triad boss are now going to try and kill him rather than pay him and have him be a patsy and so on. While this is all going on, a detective named Li Ying, played by Danny Lee, is investigating what's going on, and he somewhat quickly figures out who the killer is that he's trying to track down. But what kind of happens is that Zhang and Li Ying meet about a third to halfway through the movie, and they discover that they actually think they like each other. They have a good vibe. They're very easy to buddy up. So it becomes this kind of cop / killer versus cop versus killer, and then it's all centered on trying to protect Jenny and get her to this place where she can be saved. It is John Woo's film where he is trying to pay tribute to a lot of great assassin movies in the past. The ones he has specifically named are Le Samouraï by Jean-Pierre Melville, a terrific French crime picture that's kind of very weird and chilly and detached, and Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets. But it's also, and I think this doesn't get talked about quite as often, but it's pretty like much a remake of Charlie Chaplin's City Lights, but with an assassin in place of the tramp, because it's all about, like, I want this young woman who I've kind of fallen in love with to have eye surgery, and I'm going to do everything in my power to afford her eye surgery for her. So that's like the plot. Obviously, the plot is not why we're here. We're here for the action. We're here for the vibes, and it's a great movie that is, unfortunately for me at least, overshadowed by one of the all-time great movies, because the next time that John Woo and Chow Yun-fat worked together in 1992 was to create Hard Boiled, which is one of my favorite movies, period. This is an excellent movie that is not one of my favorite movies, is how I feel about The Killer. That's not to say that I don't think... I think I could easily see a viewer deciding the other way around, that they actually like The Killer better. It's basically a matter of Hard Boiled is a film full of big, messy maximalism, and The Killer is all about kind of this sense of impending doom. Like, it's very much a film about how violence is not cool, even though it's staged in this very ingenious, exciting, high-speed way. Violence is bad, because violence kills people and they suffer from it. And so that's kind of the attitude that the movie has all along. So it's at the same time like a very extraordinarily well choreographed gun fu movie. You know, lots of great gun battles, tons and tons of squibs, so much stage blood gets erupted from extras' bodies in this movie. But at the same time, you never like, that's so fucking cool, yeah. You're like, this is horrible, and I'm watching a man plunging into hell to try to save the soul of this young woman. So they're doing two different things. They're doing two things extraordinarily well. I just like the thing Hard Boiled is doing better, but I'd still say The Killer, especially as it gets towards this insane climax where the detective and the cop are in a church together. It's a very church imagery-oriented film, which is, of course, very important to John Woo with the flying doves. I don't think this is where he invents flying doves, but he certainly uses a shitload of flying doves in this movie, and a lot of slow motion, of course. That climax in the church is just a masterpiece of unending waves of people trying to take down the heroes, and it just becomes more and more draining as they have to keep killing and killing and killing in this place of peace and worship. So it is a very tragic film, I would say, and that's maybe what sort of feels different about this than a lot of other great action films. It's not exciting. it's actually kind of wearying, but in a way that's very, I think, enriching and good and exciting. Anyway, it's a masterpiece. It was for a long time very hard to lay hands on in the States, although it just got I think, extremely overpriced UHD release a couple months ago that maybe I'll buy when I have money to burn. But it is streaming right this moment on the Criterion channel, which is actually how I watched it. So if you haven't seen it, you should, because it's a really good movie. And that is what I have to say about The Killer. So thank you, Andrew, for putting that in front of me.
I am ashamed to say that the only John Woo movie I have seen is Mission Impossible 2, which is the worst one. So,
I mean, he's made a lot, so I won't say that that's the case. I'll merely say it's the worst one I have seen.
I mean, I also the worst of the Mission Impossible movies as well.
Also that. Also
definitely.
That definitely. He made Broken Arrow, right?
He sure did. Yeah, I think that was his first American film.
Yeah, I enjoyed that fine.
I did too. It was a good movie.
I am very underseen on Hong Kong in general.
Same.
I'm working on it. I have seen a lot of like the big. I've seen this. I've seen Hard Boiled. I've seen like a lot of the big titles. I haven't seen a lot of the sort of mid-tier titles. And
I really need to pick up the new 4K of City on Fire, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of Chow Yun Fat, which
same.
I saw that in college on VHS dubbed, so I'm not sure it counts that I've ever seen that movie.
I'd say it counts.
When it's like a European art film, I get a little snooty about dubbing versus subbing. When it's an action film, they want you to watch it in a language that you don't have to like think about. So I think dubbing for an action movie is okay.
But either way, need to pick that up at some point.
Me too.
So action movies, cool. Gun movies by John Woo, very cool. Mission Impossible 2, not very cool.
Not cool.
not a cool movie. But anyway, thank you so much, Andrew, for just giving me a nice little present where I get to rant and rave about a movie that I love. If you, like Andrew, want to support the show, how's that for a segue? You can do so by joining our Patreon. We do have a couple names that I want to shout out who just joined/upgraded. First, we have a new Patreon in the form of Derek Peterson, who signed up for the Crewhead level. So thank you, Derek. Crewhead gives him access to reviews of classic movies that published a week in advance for Patreons. I've got a couple of those on the site right now. I will say this, I am now settled in a new city, which means I'm going to start reviewing movies again. I wrote my first movie review in 2 months, and I'm going to be good about doing that more. So if you want to get access to those movies a week in advance, you can do that by joining Patreon. We also had an upgrade. Freya signed up for the director tier, which means that she has access to tell me a movie to watch and write a review of. So you'll actually be seeing one of those written reviews fairly soon from Freya, which does mean that at this moment in time, we have a gap at the screenwriter tier. So if you do want to have me talk about a movie on the Patreon or on the podcast, you can do that by signing up at the screenwriter tier. So go ahead and check that out. Anyone need a break? Okay. I just want to put a couple seconds of silence down so I can see this in the microphone. But meanwhile, we are here to talk about two other excellent classic movies. So this is just a great day for me. We are here to talk about Sunset Boulevard or Versus, or however we want to frame it, All About Eve. This was a topic that was pitched by you, Zev, so go ahead and, if you don't mind, introduce us. Why these two movies? Why put these two 75-year-old films in conversation with each other?
Well, I think you just answered the first question. This is the 75th anniversary of two of the most celebrated films of Hollywood's golden age, both in terms of Oscar statuettes and also just in terms of general acclaim and just legacy, especially Sunset Boulevard. The main reason why I wanted to do this episode is not so much, I think a lot of people would I do know a few people actually who would prefer All About Eve to Sunset Boulevard, but my fear is that young moviegoers, if young moviegoers actually exist, that of the two, Sunset Boulevard is likely the one that is likely to be more seen, and All About Eve is more likely to not necessarily fade from view, but tend to not get as much attention, not be as celebrated as I think it probably should be, despite it having a standard as, in my opinion, one of the 10 or so, maybe even 5 best picture picture winners ever. They're both among my 20 or so favorite movies of all time, and sure. And also, damn it, I just had another thought, and it just scurried away from me. It'll come back. But it also, this particular Oscar showdown was such a special case. It's like, I think there was way back, I think way back in the Antagony Ecstasy days, there was a point where somebody, Tim, I think, had commented on your Disney villain ranking, who do you prefer, Cruella versus Maleficent? It's a little bit like that. so, they're just so, both of them just so damn amazing. But
yeah.
I could go on, but it'll become boring very quickly.
No, for sure. And I will say, famously, these two films squared off for a lot of Oscars. There's actually 9 categories at the 23rd Academy Awards for the films of 1950. 9 categories where these films went head-to-head, or in some case, head-to-head-to-head, because there's a couple cases where there were multiple nominees in one category.
I do also want to plug back in, sorry, Tim. All About Eve remains, I think to this day, the most nominated movie in history, tied with Titanic, with 14 nominations.
Oh, I think, wasn't the 10 Commandments up there as well?
I'm not sure if the 10 Commandments was. I know it's a 3-way tie. I can probably get that information.
Ben-Hur, the other one?
Maybe it's Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur.
I get those 2 movies mixed up, which is not great.
Neither of those 2 movies, so.
True.
I can see mixing them up. They're both, very long.
Epic.
Very long.
Very long 50s movies. Very long 50s movies.
Yeah.
Each one of which has one good performance that's really horny, and the rest of the acting is kind of dull. So, but yes, I will say, Zev, to your point, we I don't think touched on, All About Eve did win the Best Picture award that year. You did mention that. So, I think that gives it some visibility, and I will say, just as maybe this comforts you, maybe not, in terms of young people discovering it, my partner had actually seen All About Eve before we started dating, but I had to show him Sunset Boulevard. And it took some doing. Like, he was convinced that Sunset Boulevard was like I was trying to snow him with, like, here's this art movie that you're not going to like. I was like, it's fucking Sunset Boulevard and you're gay. Like, you're going to love this movie. So the kids are still finding All About Eve, maybe not quite as much, because also I think it is worth saying as well, Billy Wilder's name remains, I think, one that people are like, ooh, I like Billy Wilder films. I don't know that there are a lot of people under the age of like 70 who would go out and say, ooh, I like Joseph L. Mankiewicz films, but they should, because he's a good filmmaker too.
He's not 70 now?
He's just not as sassy as Billy Wilder.
True.
Only in reputation. In dialogue, he has no equal, which we'll get to shortly. True. I did want to fact check that about that nomination record. Ben-Hur has 12 nominations.
So maybe I'm thinking of, they both won 11, Titanic and Ben-Hur.
Yeah, that's correct.
Sorry, my mistake.
Right. I have a thing. I'm gonna pull it up. I actually have this on my drive, so I should just pull it up and figure it out. But yes, I thought one way we could work our way into this little, like, path of ours. So it is... All About Eve, Titanic, and La La Land. That's the third one with 14.
Oh my god.
I thought La La Land
I liked La La Land, but wow.
I did too, but what? That's
I thought La La
ridiculous.
Land was 13.
It was 14.
Was it really?
Yeah. That's what I got my records.
And it didn't win Best Picture.
I think there was a sense that it had too many nominations, and we should be embarrassed by how many nominations we gave it.
There was certainly a backlash to La La Land that year.
There sure was.
Yeah.
I like La La Land just fine, but that makes me angry.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, I thought a good way to maybe move through this, because they were head-to-head in 9 different categories. So before we talk about the movies in general, I thought we should relitigate those 9 categories, if y'all are okay with that.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm going to start us with the 2 categories. There are 3 categories, but the 2 categories where they went head to head and they both lost that aren't acting categories.
Oh, that aren't acting categories.
Because we gotta hold Best Actress till the second to last.
It's hell of a race. Yeah.
But let's start then with Best Editing, where they were both nominated, as was the great film The Third Man, which is a name you're going to be hearing a few times this episode, as was the not as great film Annie Get Your Gun, which is a okay musical, and the winner, which I'm going to guarantee I'm the only person on this chat who's ever seen, is King Solomon's Mines. But if we just agree that King Solomon's Mines, what the fuck, between these two films, All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard, what do we think about editing? Who votes for which?
I vote for Sunset Boulevard for no other reason that it's like 20-some minutes shorter.
Well, there is that. There's that. Zev, what about you?
On this one, I probably would give it to Sunset Boulevard as well.
Okay. Cameron?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a sucker for the like, and this is in the screenplay as well, so we'll talk about that. But setting something up at the beginning and then finding out how it happens. For some reason, I always like that, and the editing does a lot to help that out.
It does. I'm actually going to then be the one who's going to break the streak. I like the editing better in All About Eve, and here's why. You can kill dialogue with editing like nobody's business if you don't time it perfectly. And hot take, the dialogue in All About Eve is good.
Super hot take.
I think it's just pieced together so immaculately. It's such a rhythmic film. You mentioned, Brian, how long it is. It surely does not feel. It's what, 2.25?
Doesn't. Something like that, yeah, like 2:18 or something.
2:18, which is a deadly length, and it does not feel that way to me. So I have to give it the editing win just because it paces itself so well.
It's the great exception to the rule.
And not also for the last time, I would still give it to The Third Man out of all the nominees.
I agree with that for sure.
So, but this is not a three-way podcast. This is a two-way podcast. So the other category where they both lost is cinematography, black and white. Milton Krasner shot All About Eve. John Seitz shot Sunset Boulevard. Other nominees include The Asphalt Jungle, shot by Harold Rawson. The Furies, which I have not seen. It's a Western, I believe. Shot by Victor Milner. And the winner is The Third Man, shot by Robert Kresker. They did make the right choice. All those Dutch angles, man.
Yeah.
This art. But let's say that The Third Man fell into the sea on its way across, and we have to pick between Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve.
Yeah, they're both gorgeous movies.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I have to give it to Sunset Boulevard, which, just because it's so contrasty, and I'm such a sucker for that too. Like, this movie was kind of. It was one of my first discoveries, quote unquote, in film school that I kind of brought me into loving old movies. And that is part of the reason that it's just the blacks in this movie are gorgeous. And I watched it on Canopy, which was not a great way to watch it because the resolution kept dropping. I know. I've been thinking ever since I rewatched it that I need to buy this on Blu-ray. So.
The Blu-ray
it just came out on 4K. It just came out on 4K too.
Oh, interesting.
Like this summer in August.
I can't replace every movie I own on Blu-ray.
It's so hard not to choose.
I get it.
But something you guys said on the Nora episode a month or two ago about how cigarette smoking just looks so good in black and white.
Yes.
In that scene, when they're laying on the couch smoking in Sunset Boulevard,
the one where
you can just fall into just the smoke rising up. It is such a beautiful, gorgeous, high contrast scene.
Whenever I say I miss smoking in movies because I miss backlight cigarette smoke in movies, I am specifically thinking of the scene where they're watching the old footage of her as a young woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that scene exactly. My God, it's gorgeous.
There was, when I used to teach film production, I had a list of things that never looked bad on screen, and backlit cigarette smoke and backlit rain are two of them, and
it's hard to mess up.
Yeah.
What about you, Zev? Where do you stand on the cinematography?
Well, I guess it is Sunset Boulevard. As much as like I don't want to take away that from All About Eve though, because it is there's nothing in it that's quite as flashy or as like show offy as Sunset Boulevard, but it's so precise. Like and I think specifically when I was thinking, Tim, about your Serious Man review of all things, just just in the way that you noted that Deacon's cinematography in A Serious Man, it shows what technical perfection looks like, and I don't know if All About Eve would fit that same sense of technical perfection, but it kind of has a perfection in not in holding back, where Sunset Boulevard kind of works the other way, I think. I don't know if that doesn't make sense or... No,
it does. Sunset Boulevard is asking you to notice the lighting in a way that All About Eve is asking you to allow the lighting to influence the story. So.
Right.
For sure.
And there's also, to a certain extent, All About Eve is about these actresses that are still in their prime, and so the lighting is still kind of universally flattering to them, whereas... Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard is lit in all sorts of crazy ways because she's sort of devolving into this madness. And there's a moment like when I think it's when she's descending the staircase when she goes out of focus and then
yes
this is so great, and then like arrives within her complete madness. That I love that kind of thing. However, All About Eve really lets you. The fact that there's not as flashy cinematography does let you focus on the drama between the characters and the dialogue and all of that a bit more.
Sure.
So, which is admirable in its own right.
All About Eve is a beautifully shot movie.
Absolutely.
It's just Sunset Boulevard has all this expressionistic and this kind of tips into art direction too, but it's got that decaying mansion that they can bounce all sorts of angles and stuff off of. It's just there's so much more you can do with the camera in a movie like Sunset Boulevard than a movie like All About Eve.
Right.
For sure. And I will say there's a lot of, I think, secretly brilliant shots hiding inside All About Eve where they're not calling attention to itself. But like, we talked about the final shot of Sunset Boulevard, which is of course a all-time masterpiece, but All About Eve has a really good final shot.
It does.
Like
I just rewatched it the other night.
The composition and they sort of, it's just really great. I will say, however, I'm going to make it a split decision. I am on Team Sunset Boulevard for the win here, in part because, like Cameron, this is what taught me what good dark lighting could look like. In part because I think, getting to another point that was just made, I sort of see the movie as a battle between silent film technique and 1950s film technique. So you have all the scenes clustered around Joe are in this kind of very docu-naturalist style. All the scenes clustered around Norma's mansion are these crazy-ass expressionist shadows, because it is kind of about the 20s lurching their way into the 1950s in a way that I really quite like, or 1949 at least.
And there is a particular shot in Sunset Boulevard. I think it's the very first shot of Norma Desmond as it's like we zoom in where she's like eyeing him. Why have you kept me so late? And I have
when she's up on the window balcony thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever seen a shot like that in a movie before. So that kind of it opened my eyes to cinematography in a way that All About Eve didn't, but
sure. All About Eve is a very, very well shot movie, of course.
For sure.
Yes.
I do want to... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick. John Seitz, sorry. Joseph Mankiewicz. Also, he did shoot a lot of silent film stuff. So he, and I think he was maybe chosen for that reason. He fits the mold, so to speak.
For sure. And there is a great story about this. So John Seitz had a great deal of latitude with how he wanted to shoot this film. Billy Wilder was someone who wanted to focus on other parts of the story, so he kind of brought in Seitz that he knew he could trust. And there's this phenomenal anecdote where Seitz had no idea what tone they were going for very early on, like it's the first time we really see Norma as a character, is the chimpanzees lying in state scene.
Yes.
And Seitz was like, is this funny? Is this serious? Is this scary? I don't know. How do you want me to light it? And Wilder's response was, oh, just use the standard monkey funeral setup. Which I think is a delightful anecdote.
That is.
So let's jump into the ones where they actually go head-to-head. And we just touched on the art direction, or they've been going head-to-head, but one of them won. We just touched on the art direction, which Sunset Boulevard won art direction over All About Eve. The other nomination went to Red Danube, which I have not seen, certainly. And what do we think about art direction? Cameron.
Again, that mansion. That mansion gives them so much to play with. And, I mean, All About Eve has a lot of good, but more functional sets and locations. Because it's not as over-the-top and crazy. But, man, that mansion, they get so much mileage out of just that location that it's hard to even call it a competition.
Cameron, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're so different. Like, it's almost hard to compare the two, because Brian's right. The mansion does a lot, but then also just the set decoration of the mansion and the younger photos of Gloria Swanson. I'm not gonna say I definitely fall on the side of Sunset Boulevard, but I'm gonna cop out here and just say I don't know that I can decide, because I think they both, like, especially in All About Eve, Eve's apartment, something about her apartment really is evocative. Sorry, here's my chatty kitten. It's really evocative who she is and what is, I don't know, like, something about seeing where she lives is very successful to me when what's his name, the reporter guy, comes in and they have that scene together. And it's very kind of stark and simplistic, as a young ingenue who just is kind of getting her start might have. And that, more so than anything with Bette Davis, like, I think is a really interesting scene for art direction in that movie. But it's also, I don't think I could decide between the two on art direction.
No, I think that we learn a lot about who the characters are in All About Eve, for sure, and that's like one of the ways we learn about how the characters are. I also want to throw out, I think, the big party scene in the first act.
Yes.
That scene has just immaculate blocking, and part of what makes blocking feasible is having the set that will cluster characters in certain quadrants. So I certainly don't want to say that it has unimpressive art direction, because it's great sets, really useful storytelling sets. That being said, the mansion in Sunset Boulevard is my favorite location in any 1950s Hollywood movie. So I'm a Sunset Boulevard voter. But Zev, what are your thoughts?
Well, you've mentioned the party scene and the way that they maneuver throughout Margot's, I guess, house. It is almost, if that scene takes up a good chunk of film time, and when I'm thinking about it, Mankiewicz is able to get, like, mileage out of just, like, every single room almost in that shot, whether we're up in the bedroom and it's between Thelma Ritter and Bette Davis on the day of the party going, you don't like Eve, or when it's her and Bill just before the party starts and they're by the piano, or whether it's in the kitchen when it's a lot more intimate between Hugh Marlowe and Bette Davis, or at the staircase where everyone just collides, and it's kind of, that house is kind of where all these personalities collide, and it kind of sets everyone on the course of the journey through the rest of the movie in a way that I'm not sure that any other scene in Sunset Boulevard does quite the same way. So the party scene and the magnificent way he just goes throughout Margot's house is just extraordinary.
Sure. Well, let's keep moving along. Another category where they both competed, where Sunset Boulevard also won, if I'm not mistaken, was Best Score. And I've lost my... There we are. Yes, Best Score. I'll cut this part out. It was Best Score, where Sunset Boulevard, scored by Franz Waxman, won. All About Eve, scored by Alfred Newman. Mr. 20th Century Fox himself did not win. And then 3 other nominees, The Flame and the Arrow, No Sad Songs for Me, Samson and Delilah. How do we feel about the score? I feel like there's one obvious place we have to start this conversation. Zev, tell us about the music in these movies.
I like them. I like both the scores a lot. I find myself listening to the Eve score more just as music sometimes, but I feel like the use of it in Sunset Boulevard probably lands us in film noir. I mean, it certainly lands us in film noir territory more, but I think it's kind of sneakier, but I don't want to take that away, because the music in All About Eve is certainly very sneaky in its own way. Thinking particularly about the scene where Eve is sort of revealing her backstory and how the score kind of just makes it a little sappy, but not too much so, but that they're kind of like seduced by Eve in the moment, and just keeping things, peppy. It is New York theater after all, so it is very busy. But probably I think they probably made the right choice in giving it to Sunset Boulevard for this one.
Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not somebody who generally notices a lot of the score unless it's bad. And I don't know what it is. Like, it works on me, it has the effect it's supposed to, and I usually forget the music as soon as the movie's over. So neither one were bad. I have no comments on them, so
well, if you don't notice that it's there, then we've done our job properly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, right.
I'm not dissimilar from Brian, where I tend to notice the incredibly flashy scores, like the Dunkirk kind of score, a bit, or I meant to say Inception, but Dunkirk too.
Well, they have the same score, so.
Yeah. However, I was sitting there during rewatching both of these movies, really appreciating how scores used to be used in films, as opposed to kind of how they are now. And Zev, maybe you have something more to say about this, because it's an unformed thought in my head, but I feel like they were classier and a bit more judicious back in the day, there was more of a presence in a lot of old movies of the music. And again, I'm not a trained musician in any capacity, so forgive me if I sound like a babbling idiot about that, but I appreciated both of them in the rewatch. Yeah.
Well, I think that a lot of movies, and one of my professors put this very, very, very well. He said, if you look at a 90-minute movie from 30 years ago, you'll see a movie that feels like it has 30 minutes of music. If you look at a 90-minute movie now, you'll have a movie where it feels like there's 80 to 85 minutes of music.
Yes.
So All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard and a lot of old Hollywood do not, the ones I think a lot of the ones that we remember from old Hollywood do not use music as window dressing. And I think certainly Orson Welles did not use music as window dressing, especially when he was working with Bernard Herrmann. And All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard certainly know where to use music, how it will be used extremely efficiently, both in the use of score and also just as source music. There's one of my favorite bits in All About Eve is when she requests Lebistrom, and he says, "But I just played it for the 4th time. Then this will be 5." That makes me crack up.
There's that line in Sunset Boulevard when Joe and Betty are writing the script, where he says something about how this dialogue is great, and it'll be even better when there's music drowning it out or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
That cracks me up so much.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out a theory, and Zev, maybe you can immediately shoot this down. My sense is that, not that I want to say John Williams ruined everything. I feel like John Williams introduces in Star Wars the idea of the musical score as essentially a narrative symphony that happens to have a motion picture running alongside of it. And I feel like a lot of what we now have in film scoring is downstream from like John Williams is making the movie, in a sense. I think that more than any other individual component, Star Wars score is what Star Wars is. And I don't think you had that prior to the 70s, because you really do have this idea that music is sort of... It should not be the thing that is the movie, in a way. And I don't know that we still have that discipline.
The thing, the exception that comes to my mind immediately is The Adventures of Robin Hood, scored by Korngold.
Oh, sure.
But again, that style had fallen out of fashion until Williams brought it back.
Right, because Williams avowedly was throwing back to Korngold. Yes,
for sure.
Like acknowledged that was an influence of his.
Absolutely.
To the films at hand, I would say that I think these both have excellent scores, and I think Sunset Boulevards is the one I can call to mind more readily. Specifically, I think all of those big, angry noir blasts that kind of accompany moments when the film is really like jangly and intense. Certainly the opening credits, the various moments where Norma is going exceptionally crazy. That being said, I am actually going to say I probably would have voted for All About Eve on the grounds that I think the music is working with the film a bit more organically. And I think in Sunset Boulevard, the points that I noticed the music really do feel like it's been kind of punched into the movie, more like teased out of the movie, which I don't know if that means anything, but that's two great scores, two phenomenally good scores, to be sure. But that gets us into the big above the line categories. And I feel we should probably start with supporting actress, because actually neither one of these films won that category, despite having between them 3/5 of the nominees. The actual winner for Best Supporting Actress was Josephine Hull in Harvey. Also nominated was Hope Emerson for Caged. But from the films in question, we have 2 All About Eve nominations, which is part of its overall haul of 5 nominations, which is also a record-tying number. Celeste Holm and Thelma Ritter were both nominated for All About Eve, and then Nancy Olson was nominated for Sunset Boulevard. Who do we think of those 3 candidates is the one that we would have voted for? And I will just flat out tell you, I think Josephine Hull's performance is bad in Harvey. I think I actually don't like her in Harvey.
I haven't seen that.
I think she's doing a very much like, I'm a wacky old lady, and it's like, no, just calm the fuck down, please. But yeah, Brian, where do you stand on these performances?
I think all 3 are good performances. I think they all work. If I had to pick one of them, I would probably go with Nancy Olson. But that might be because I watched Sunset Boulevard yesterday and I watched All About Eve a few months ago, so it's fresher in my mind.
Sure.
But I think she just gives a really fun performance, and trying to, first she's very mean in his comments to him, then the parts where he refuses to work with her and she starts throwing a temper tantrum crack me up.
Yeah.
But no, I think all 3 are very good performances. I think these are both excellently acted movies. Hot take.
For sure. Hot take. Very hot.
Yeah, another hot take.
Yeah. Zev, what about you?
So my instinct as a growing curmudgeon, and as somebody who is morphing into Miracle Max more and more every day, my instinct is to go with Thelma Ritter. And I can't do that, because she simply just does not get that much to do after the party scene. And all the love in the world to Nancy Olson. I know that Celeste Holm had gotten the Oscar a couple years previously for Gentleman's Agreement. She should have won here, because that is one of the pivotal roles in the movie, just based on how the plot goes about. But also, there's a real. I was watching a short documentary on All About Eve, and they interviewed her. She gets something to do that Bette Davis was incredibly envious of. She was able to laugh on command, very brightly, very spiritedly, and Bette Davis just like got so angry because she was like, I just can't do that. And apparently Davis was just horrible on the production to Celeste Holm.
No,
Yeah.
Bette Davis was horrible to another actress on a set.
I know. I mean, but
Yeah.
I know, hot take. But the way she kind of just like, and apparently Mankiewicz had known how awful Davis was, and he was like, "Would you like to laugh again?"
Everyone in Hollywood knew how awful she was.
So I mean, just I think Celeste probably should have gotten the Oscar for this.
Okay. Cameron, who are you voting for?
I mean, I also would have wanted to give it to Thelma Ritter, but I don't. I kind of agree that it's almost not quite enough of a part to even have been nominated. Like, she's great and we've had Oscar nominations for people with only one scene, but yes, she's a supporting actress. I don't know exactly what she's supporting other than being the only character in the beginning to be skeptical of Eve's presence and her desires in the world. I probably also, if I had been voting at the time, would have ended on Celeste Holm, who looks like another actress that I spent the entire movie trying to figure out who she looks like, and I can't figure it out. So if anyone else knows who she looks like, please let me know.
I mean, she looks like Celeste Holm to me, so I can't.
I know,
help
but there's somebody else that I want to say was in a musical. I'll figure it out.
I think you can all go fuck yourselves. I think Thelma Ritter is God herself. I don't vote against Thelma Ritter on any of her nominations just because it is a crime. It is a crime against humanity that she never won an Oscar. I will say, I think Nancy Olsen has the hardest part of these movies because it's a kind of a vague character, and she sort of feels like there's a lot of weird impulses that are not connecting in the script that the actress has to pull out, and I think she mostly does. If we're talking strictly quality of the performance that we get, I probably go with Celeste Holm. You're probably right, but it's Thelma Ritter. I'm sorry. And she also, Thelma Ritter has that line, "What a story, everything but the bloodhound snapping at her rear end." And I'm not voting against Thelma Ritter. I'm sorry. It's not.
She was also a professional award nominee, wasn't she?
She, I believe, is the record holder for supporting actress specifically for the most nominations for that award.
Oh, that's fascinating.
She has 6 Oscar nominations, 3 Golden Globes, and a Primetime Emmy without winning any. She did win a Tony Award, but
because
she was not nominated
is made clear.
Sorry,
I was going to say, as this conversation is made clear, she's easy to take for granted, isn't she? But you were going to say something.
She was not nominated for Rear Window. What the fuck?
Oh, that's insane. Really?
Yeah. Although I think there's at least a possibility that's because she was nominated for something else that year. Nope, I am wrong. She just straight up wasn't nominated that year.
I was going to say, what year was Rear Window? Because half her nominations pulled up right now.
So she's nominated for All About Eve, The Mating Season, With a Song in My Heart, Pick Up on South Street, Pillow Talk, Birdman of Alcatraz. I think I'd give it to her any one of those years except for Pillow Talk. But I'd have to look at the list of nominations. I have feelings about Thelma Ritter not having won an Oscar.
Fair enough.
While we're still in the supporting actor categories, we do have one where they went head-to-head, and All About Eve won. That is Best Actor in a Supporting Role, which was won by George Sanders. Also nominated was Eric von Stroheim from Sunset Boulevard, as well as Jeff Chandler from Broken Arrow, not the same one we were talking about earlier. Edmund Gwenn from Mr. 880, and Sam Jaffe from The Asphalt Jungle. I think this very easily, I haven't seen Mr. 880, but I think this very easily becomes between the two, All About Eve versus Sunset Boulevard for me. I'm curious where you guys are at. So let's go reverse order. So Cameron, where are you between Sanders and Stroheim?
I think I would give it to Sanders. I think Stroheim is just a little bit more of an archetype, or That's not right. He's not an
Caricature?
archetype because he's
a caricature.
Yeah, he's kind of a caricature.
Caricature.
Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for.
He is, to be fair, a caricature of his own self.
Of himself, yes, absolutely. However, I think Saunders, as smarmy as he is in that movie, is really effective in All About Eve. I liked him.
Yep. Zev, what about you?
Well, Orson Welles was not nominated for the Third Man, so
Well, that would have been my write-in vote for sure. But yes.
Actually, I think that. But my question to that is Sanders not doing a caricature of himself as well?
Sure, absolutely.
But he's also, as I've heard, doing very much a caricature of Mankiewicz, which not challenging at all for him, but who ever did it as well or better? Like, and I know there's probably a couple of people, but like when you want smarmy, just completely cynical, just know-it-alls, like. And I don't know if I'm misusing the terms or if there's probably better hyperbolic adjectives I could use. When I'm quoting this movie, I'm usually quoting his dialogue first. There's a reason.
Yeah.
I have not come to New Haven to see the play, discuss your dreams, or pull the ivy from the walls of Yale.
Yes. Brian, how about yourself?
I think I'm with the group here. It's like, I think Eric von I'm going to mispronounce his name. Straheim?
Yeah.
Straheim. I think he's really good at what he's doing. And I think this, again, comes down to one of the big differences that Sunset Boulevard is a much more over-the-top movie. And his character is much more over-the-top, but George Sanders is just so good as Addison. He's so smarmy, as everyone's already said. He's somehow hateable and likable at the exact same time. Just a fantastic performance.
Yeah, I mean, as mentioned, if Orson Welles is in this slate, I probably am an Orson Welles voter, but like, I'm going to make it 4 for 4. It's not a fair fight because George Sanders gets like all of the best lines in a movie that is nothing but best lines.
He doesn't have my favorite line in the movie, to be fair.
Which is that?
My favorite line is actually Marilyn Monroe, and it's totally down to delivery. The setup's like, she says something about how she wants a sable, and I don't remember who it says of it. Did you say sable or gable? And she just answers either one, but there's just this perfect little bit of sexual hunger and a shit ton of sass, and it is my favorite line in the entire movie, just for her delivery of it.
You know, we could probably talk about Marilyn Monroe at great length. I think this is secretly one of her very best performances. I think she's superb in her very tiny role here.
You can absolutely see why she became a star, just from this tiny bit she has.
And I will say, my favorite line is, not maybe my favorite line, the line I use the most in life from this movie is set up by Marilyn Monroe. And it is a George Sanders line. It's at the party where she says something like, I can't just say Butler. What if there's someone's name is Butler? And George Sanders responds, you have a point. An idiotic one, but a point.
Yeah. There's also, going off onto just the great lines in this movie. What's the line about how he's 35 today, he was 35?
Yeah.
He'll be 35 10
and he
years
looks
from
at,
now.
he looked, when he was 25, he looked 35. He looked at what, he's 35 and he looks it. When he was 25, he looked it. When he was 50, he's going to look it. God, I
think
something.
I think it's
that line
32, but
30,
still,
32.
yeah, it's the God I Hate Men is such a great way to wrap it up.
Actually, I don't think it's God I Hate Men, because I don't think you could say God
It's
in
just
1950.
I hate
It's just
men.
I hate
Yeah,
men.
you're right.
But you can hear it. You can hear it in her delivery.
They have a wonderful
such a great movie.
exchange. They have a wonderful exchange in the next scene. Your next move would be towards television. Did they have auditions in television? That's all television is, my dear. Nothing but auditions.
All right, let's leap ahead of the acting categories because we want to save something big for last, obviously. But let's go to Best Director, where they did square off. Joseph L. Mankiewicz won, beating Billy Wilder, also beating John Huston for Asphalt Jungle, George Cukor for Born Yesterday, Carol Reed for The Third Man. That is a good
What a slate.
list. That is a good
wow.
list.
What a slate of
Great slate.
directors. I mean, just forgetting the movies for a second, just the directors.
Absolutely.
You cannot go wrong on giving any of them a trophy.
Yeah.
No, I think all of them are very good in general. I think all of them are very good in these particular films. Where do we even start? I mean, I don't know, Zev, who do you vote for out of this slate?
The only movie I have not seen from this slate is Born Yesterday, so I know I need to catch up with that one. I mean, it's easy to just say Carol Reed, but
it is.
But also, I mean, this is too tough. Someone's gonna need to go first. Fuck.
Ryan, how about you?
Oh man, it is a tough call because just between the two that we're actually focusing on here and leaving Carol Reed out for the second. Again, it's the same thing I've been saying about a lot of the categories is Billy Wilder's made an unhinged movie that I absolutely adore, while Mankiewicz made a much more naturalistic, realistic, hi kitty, movie that I also absolutely adore. But they're doing very different things in the movies that they made. Yeah. They're both absolutely gorgeous movies. They both have absolutely fantastic performances. They are both well shot. They are both well edited. They're well directed, well acted. But if I had to make a vote for, I think I would go with Mankiewicz. Because I think he's getting more out of less because he doesn't get the big, over-the-top, incredibly unhinged performance from Gloria Swanson to build his movie around. Yes, it's all merely for, Bette Davis being one of the greatest actresses that ever lived.
For sure. Cameron, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Brian where the lack of flash and the fact that All About Eve is still so compelling speaks a lot. First of all, he's also one of the screenwriters on All About Eve, correct? Mankiewicz?
Does he have a screenplay credit? Let me look real quick.
Does he have a screenplay? I believe he does.
Maybe yes, he has the sole screenplay credit.
Okay, so yeah, he does a lot with very little, as you said, Brian, and the fact that there's not the extreme visual components in art direction, cinematography, and even just Gloria Swanson's face, like the fact that he does so much and you're still like riveted by what he gets out of the actors I would go with him too.
Yeah, I'm gonna, I'm for sure a Carol Reed voter because I think Third Man is one of the consummate works of cinema, and the other two are really damn good, even consummate. But I think Third Man is Third Man. I think between Wilder and Mankiewicz, I would say in general I like Wilder better. I think this is Mankiewicz's best film and probably not Wilder's best film, though maybe. But Mankiewicz is getting a very large cast to all be on the same page with some, I think, very, not idiosyncratic dialogue, but very arch dialogue that could easily sound quite fakey and theatrical and never ever does, except for George Sanders where it's supposed to. So I think he's just working at a more impressively consistent level with the actors. But I think even more than that, All About Eve is, as we said, 2 hours and 18 minutes long, and that is a deadly length. And it feels not even close to that long. I think it's just an extremely well-paced movie. So I think I have to go with Mankiewicz as well, with reluctance, because I want Billy Wilder to win an Oscar for Sunset Boulevard, but I don't think I can in this particular case.
Well, I will throw a wild card into the mix and give my vote to Chuck Jones for Rabbit of Seville.
Well.
Sadly not nominated.
For
an Oscar.
But if only the world were just and the Oscar competition could routinely have people who were nominated for animated shorts. But
especially classical music animated shorts.
Obviously. Yeah. No, Chuck Jones would have like 7 Oscars if I were able to give him that many.
That wasn't even nominated for the best short cartoon, was it?
No. Well, not to go on a tangent here, but Chuck Jones and the various men who ran the studio first Leon Schlesinger, and then Eddie Selzer. Selzer in particular really did not like Chuck Jones, so he just didn't make Chuck Jones's films available to the Academy, essentially. With some exceptions, but like that's kind of the thing.
Although it is the Gerald McBoing Boing year, so...
Which, there you go.
Yeah, it's hard to...
Can't complain about that.
So we're talking about Wilder versus Mankiewicz. Where's our Chuck Jones versus Robert Cannon? Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Exactly. But let's go ahead then. Speaking of acting and managing them, Best Actress. This is, to me, the category of 1950. Both because of the headline showdown between Bette Davis and Gloria Swanson, both of whom lost, as well as Anne Baxter from All About Eve, who lost. But also we have Eleanor Parker in Caged and Judy Holliday, who won for Born Yesterday. I think this is the best year in the history of Best Actress and one of the best acting categories of all time. So that's where I'll start. However do we decide between these people? Cameron, who do you vote for?
Gosh, first of all, I would like to shout out a book that I'm in the middle of reading and about the history of the Oscars, and skipped ahead to the chapter about this exact actress race over the past couple days. It's called Oscar Wars, and I don't remember the exact subtitle, but it's great if anybody's a nerd like me and is interested.
I am not an Oscar nerd. I'm not interested.
No, you not at all. No. God, I think that I would, if I were in the shoes of somebody voting, vote for Anne Baxter. Because I hate that performance, and I hate it in a way. I hate the character, I guess is what I should say, and the performance is very effective. She has that, like, thing that old movie actresses do where she kind of never makes eye contact when she's being innocent and, like, looks off into the distance, and kind of in the, like, Olivia de Havilland Gone with the Wind sort of way where there's supposed to be nothing wrong with this character. And then the way that she turns is really interesting, and because the other two performances are so big, I think I appreciate that subtlety a little bit more. However, the other two are so iconic that it's hard to go against that. So I think I would have ended up voting for Anne Baxter.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't seen Born Yesterday or Caged, so it's hard to say. That's
fair. Brian, how about yourself?
All right, so I'm going to be like completely opposite of Cameron here, because although I think Anne Baxter is very, very good in All About Eve, I have absolutely no problem tossing that one out of the competition.
Okay.
And for me, it is between Bette Davis and Gloria Swanson. And Gloria Swanson gives an absolutely incredible performance as a woman going crazy, as a talented woman going crazy, which I think is an important part of the character. Is it's not that she's not good, it's that the business changed on her. And I think Gloria Swanson's performance is absolutely incredible. There are very few years in the history of the Oscars I wouldn't have said it was the best performance by a leading woman. But we were talking about earlier about how Bette Davis was terrible to her co-stars, directors, got into multiple legal fights with the studio over the years. There is only one way you keep getting work when you're that much of a problem, and that's by being that fucking good. Bette Davis is as good an actress as I've ever seen in anything ever, and All About Eve might be her best performance. And it's Bette Davis. She's flawless as a performer. For every flaw she has as a human being, she had none as a performer.
Yeah. Sev, how about you?
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there a year where there was a tie in some obscure category, like sound effects, editing?
Well, we had a recent, in 2012, Zero Dark 30 and Skyfall tied for the award. However, we also had a year where that obscure category, Best Actress, resulted in a tie, which was 1968 between Katharine Hepburn for Lion in Winter and Barbra Streisand for Funny Girl. So if you're saying, could there have been a tie here? There could.
I think, for me, that's the correct answer. Because Gloria Swanson is drawing on lots of things, as is Bette Davis. She's drawing on acting from the silent era, but also how that has sort of not become the norm, and how that sort of devolves in her own personal life. But also, I was watching All About Eve again the other night. It feels to me the character of Margot Channing has a lot more highs and lows, and a lot more in-betweens than the character of Norma Desmond. Like, I feel like Norma's character is a long, and I'm sure there's going to be people who disagree, but compared with Margot Channing, Norma Desmond is kind of a little more of a descent further, whereas Margot Channing is very, very much, it's like going up a hill, then down a hill, and then again. So for me, it's really, and Davis just sells it like nobody's business. Like, there's a reason why, again, she kept getting work again and again and again. But I mean, these are both unbelievable performances. I don't know how you can choose between the two.
Yeah, I feel like there's an argument, a very good one, in favor of all five candidates. And certainly, I think, Cameron, you're exactly right. Anne Baxter is playing a lizard person, and she's doing an extraordinarily good job of it.
Yeah.
Because she's so good at playing the like naive ingenue. And then there's a moment where it just sort of, you don't realize because of one thing that she's a snake. You realize she always was, and you weren't getting it because she was that good, that she was tricking you, the viewer. I think that's an incredibly tough performance to give. I will say Judy Holliday is navigating a really wonderful arc. I love Judy Holliday. I don't think the movies knew what to do with her. I think she was a stage actress. But in Born Yesterday, she's playing a woman who thinks that she is stupid, and the arc of the movie is not so much the audience realizing this woman's actually quite smart, it's the character realizing that she's been smart all along. And that's that's an arc to navigate, but it's not like that's what the movie's about, really. It's really a tremendous role, I think, and she does it really, really well. I don't love the movie, but I love her in it. Eleanor Parker in Caged, it's an early woman in prison movie, so it's a pretty standard arc of a nice woman goes to prison and then realizes, or not nice-ish, I mean, she's gone to prison, but like, she kind of gets broken and turned into this corroded force through prison. And part of what makes this challenging for me is you look at this list of nominees. Anne Baxter has already won Supporting Actress. Bette Davis has already won twice for the lead actress. Yeah. So if I'm in 1950 and I'm voting, part of me is like, well, Gloria Swanson is not ever, ever, ever going to be nominated for an Oscar again. In 1950, I wonder if I suspect that Judy Holliday comes back. I don't know if I suspect that Eleanor Parker comes back. In 2025, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, no, this was the closest shot people had. Eleanor Parker was nominated a couple other times, but if she was going to win, it had to be this year. If Judy Holliday was going to win, it had to be this year. Obviously, Gloria Swanson. So, like, it's very tough because I love all of these performances. I love all of these actors. I feel that I can't vote for Bette Davis because she already has to, even though this is a much better performance than her first win. Her second win is actually quite good. Her second win for Jezebel is, I think, fully earned. Her first win for Dangerous, she's not good, frankly. No one really knows why she won, including herself. She talked about finding it very peculiar that she won. But I have to say, Bette, I think on the strength of the performances in the movie, I think hers is my favorite here. But I can't vote for her. And I will say Gloria Swanson has, I think, one of the best moments of any of these performances, which is during that the theater scene where she gets really worked up watching her younger self and like explodes, and it's that moment where she does her little monologue about the importance of silent film acting versus sound acting. And there's a moment where she realizes that she's done it and she collects herself. And that to me is this incredible moment, because like it's easy to think of this performance as just she's a crazy lady and we see her getting more and more crazy. She's a crazy lady who has enough of a sense of living in the world that she needs to keep it tamped down, and that's part of what makes her explode eventually, is she can't keep it tamped down. And I love that beat. So I think I vote for Gloria Swanson. In part because of that beat, in part just because, again, she's a legend, and she's never sniffed Oscar before this point.
There's also another moment in that same scene where she clutches William Holden's arm, and she doesn't.
God.
And it's almost like she doesn't realize she's clutching.
She sure does not, and it's brilliant. And I take it back. This was her third nomination. She lost in 29, and she lost in 31.
But clearly she wasn't going to get another one after this.
No.
This was a perfect storm of she was the right actress for this script.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna change my vote to Swanson. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Betty.
Good.
I love you.
It's so convincing. Yeah.
I can see just the real politic argument to vote for Swanson over Davis. Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, I am not sorry that Judy Holliday has an Oscar. To be very clear, I think maybe she's actually the least interesting performance of these five. But again, this is my favorite list of 5 Best Actress nominees, so like none of them are uninteresting performances. Those of you who have not seen Born Yesterday and Caged should.
Yeah.
But that leaves us with one category left. It's the big one, Best Motion Picture, which All About Eve won. Sunset Boulevard did not. The other nominees include Born Yesterday, as well as the original version of Father of the Bride, and King Solomon's Mine, which we last saw way, way back at Best Editing. Did not include The Third Man or Asphalt Jungle, which were both nominated for Best Directing, and which would have instantaneously made this a better slate if they had replaced certainly King Solomon's Mines, which I don't know why it's here.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Asphalt Jungle wasn't.
It's frankly, like Third Man I can see being a little bit too angry and weird, but Asphalt Jungle should have absolutely been in over Father of the Bride or King Solomon's Mines.
Yeah, that one surprises me more than Third Man not being nominated.
For sure.
Even if Third Man, I think, is probably more deserving of the two, which isn't a knock on Asphalt Jungle at all.
Right. But which would you vote for, then?
Out of these 5?
Out of these 5, but I think even more specifically between All About Eve
these
and
two,
Boulevard, which I assume would be one of those two.
Yeah, yes. So I know I said I think Mankiewicz did the better job than Billy Wilder, and I said I thought Davis's performance is a little bit better than Swanson's. But man, Sunset Boulevard is just so searing and yet fun at the same time. It is such a scathing attack on Hollywood without ever not being an enjoyable movie. I think it's one of the greatest movies ever made. I love All About Eve, but if I had been voting, it'd be Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, same. And I feel like I've given Mankiewicz the directing Oscar, so I'm perfectly comfortable giving a split decision here. Sunset Boulevard is just the whole package, whereas All About Eve, I think... It's a really phenomenal script with really good performances, but visually I don't think it's quite as exhausting to me in a way that I want a movie to be exhausting. So I love All About Eve. I give the award to Sunset Boulevard, and again, if Third Man is here, I give it the award, but it's not, so I don't.
Yeah, I mean, these are both 5-star movies for me.
Of course,
without even a second of hesitation.
100%. Yeah, Cameron, how about you?
I agree with you completely. I also wonder, like, I feel like these days there's a thing where Hollywood really loves to give Oscars to movies about Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess All About Eve sort of touches upon Hollywood, but I think these days, if these were 2 movies that were up against each other, Sunset Boulevard would take it, especially because it's a bit of a scathing rebuke of Hollywood in some ways. So it's also kind of a love letter to Hollywood in some ways.
It's a poison-penned love letter, as
yes,
they say.
exactly. That's yes, love it. But yeah, no, Sunset Boulevard is a I can't argue with everything you said, Tim. So I agree.
And Zev, let's end with you because this was your topic. You brought these movies to us. Which do you vote for Best Picture?
Sorry, collecting my thoughts. I think it's easier for Hollywood to poke fun, or especially these days, to criticize or to do a satire on the theater. Like if they were to do that poison pen letter to Hollywood, it would feel unless your name is Robert Altman, it would feel very forced. Mm-hmm. So I don't think a movie like Sunset Boulevard could not be made today. Certainly not at that same caliber.
Absolutely, you're correct.
A movie like Sunset Boulevard getting made today is called Babylon, and no one knows what to do with it. And it's also a 100 years ago period piece. So,
and it's also a movie that I like, but also have forgotten about. But sure. Such as Damien Chazelle movies are. But I think that All About Eve also. But I mean, we also had Birdman, a movie about the theater, or someone wanting to be in the theater, win Best Picture several years ago. But I don't know if that same situation, I don't know if that really is relevant here. I think as part of I think Sunset Boulevard is better at being the complete package of a movie-going experience than All About Eve is, to a slightly greater extent. Not a whole lot, because I love both of these movies with all of my heart. As I said, they're both among my 20 or so favorite movies. But at the end of the day, the one that I tend to rewatch more is Sunset Boulevard. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen it more times over the last however many years, even though All About Eve is fresher in my mind. But I mean, there are days where I prefer Eve over the other, but most days I am going with Sunset Boulevard. Okay. Probably.
And you raise a good point. I think I would say to the question of which wins if they come out today, I feel like All About Eve requires American theater to be a crucially important mass art form in a way that in 2025 it is not.
Right. I mean, it's not really a directly applicable scenario.
I feel like if you made All About Eve now, you'd end up making it about Hollywood and not theater.
Exactly.
Well, that's also a little bit what Birdman was you had this guy who was, this superhero trying to direct a play on Hollywood, and it's still so tied to Hollywood, it can't escape it. So
I mean, we seem to all be forgetting that it wasn't that long ago that a version of All About Eve was made about theater. It was just made about Las Vegas showgirls. So.
It was also not that long ago that it was made about male strippers.
Also, very true. So maybe that's the key here. All About Eve needs to be about sex work.
We love you, Paul.
All right. So I think we've gone through the categories, but these are two extraordinarily rich texts. What have we not talked about with All About Eve and or Sunset Boulevard that is very, very important to talk about with these movies? Who has any thoughts there? I have a couple, but
I mean, we haven't directly touched upon screenplay. We've lauded the dialogue left and right in All About Eve, but and I believe All About Eve did win for screenplay.
They both won. Yeah, because All About Eve was an adaptation.
Got it. Great. Okay. Well, yeah, the dialogue, I mean, as Zev said at the very beginning, the dialogue is not to be trifled with. There's no bad dialogue in All About Eve.
And
go ahead. I was going to say, and there's great lines in Sunset Boulevard, too. There's the two absolutely iconic ones. Yeah, there's the two absolutely iconic lines that Norma Desmond has at the beginning, like, I am still big. The pictures got small. And at the end with the Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up, which are two of the most iconic lines in Hollywood film.
And I would honestly put "We didn't need words, we had faces" right up with those two.
Yeah,
that is a great line too.
They both have snipes at Daryl Zanuck too.
Well, Daryl Zanuck was a gigantic piece of shit that everybody hated. So there you go.
The one
he technically win the best.
He did, yeah. He actually holds the Oscar for All About Eve.
So I guess he's probably not too upset about it.
Yeah,
And I love the snipe at him in Sunset Boulevard where Holden's baseball script is rejected, and
Looks
he's
like Xanax got himself a baseball picture.
I know.
Yeah.
And I will say, obviously screenplays are not just compendiums of dialogue. And there's a reason why every single time in the last 75 years that a movie about an up-and-coming star using backstabbing techniques to get their way has been called the All About Eve of X. Like, it's a really good psychological drama hook. Like, to have this kind of, yeah.
It's such a good this framework of a story of young, obsessed fan is actually a complete monster with no morality whatsoever.
And, the other thing I want to throw out and make sure we touch on, these are films that are fundamentally about the same thing, which is as women age in a culture that values young women as the highest commodity and old women as the lowest commodity, like, how do they navigate that? And in one case, it's by realizing that she can do better than this world and fuck it. And in the other case, it's by trying so hard to make the world love her that she destroys herself and everything around her. Like, they're really very comfortably matched themes, I think.
I also think it's interesting. You're absolutely correct. And the way that sorry, I'm blanking on her name, not Norma Desmond, Margot Channing, kind of mirrors Bette Davis's life. And like how at one point she says, I think, that like I focused on my career and now I need to focus on being a woman or something to that extent. And they could not happen at the exact same time for either of them.
Yeah.
Is a really common and sad, I think, like state of being for women in Hollywood in front of the camera, behind the camera.
For sure.
Period. Like, I know I have many female cinematographer friends who have had to choose either you have a family or you work, and that's it. And I mean, it's depressing. So
not even just in Hollywood. I feel like that's kind of the deal we have made culturally with women.
Sure. Yeah. It is just sort of thrown into stark relief in Hollywood, I believe. Yeah.
Well, because I think in Hollywood and in stardom generally, not just Hollywood stardom, but theater stardom, like a young woman who is famous is sort of treasured by the whole world for like the trappings of femininity, but not being allowed to be a person. And I think that's really what, especially Sunset Boulevard, I think is diving into a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Glad
you mentioned it.
I mean, it's the central spine that connects these two movies. Is they're both very gendered. Like, I think that's hot take, but like they're both very much specifically about not just how old age is chewed up, which I think Sunset Boulevard's a little bit more generic because it's also about just like old Hollywood versus new Hollywood. But they're both very specifically about how you get to, if you're a woman who goes into middle age in these industries, you get thrown away. If you're a man who goes into middle age, you become an executive. And I think that's something that the movies are aware of, I think.
And the contrast between Norma Desmond and Cecil B. DeMille in Sunset Boulevard illustrates that really well, because he's still working. And she is not,
he was
and
an
they came
adult
up
when
together.
she started. Yep.
And I think Billy Wilder does not have enough of a chip on his shoulder about Cecil B. DeMille to make this joke. But I think the movie Cecil B. DeMille is like the joke, of course, is that Norma wants to be in this trashy, awful biblical epic. What we hear about it sounds dreadful. Cecil B. DeMille, meanwhile, is making Samson and Delilah, which is frankly not a good movie. It's kitschy.
Big hit though.
Big hit. But like that's the thing. Cecil B. DeMille has as of 1949, turned into a kitschmonger. He makes a Samson and Delilah. He makes Greatest Show on Earth after Sunset Boulevard. He makes the Ten Commandments after that. These are not quote unquote good movies. They're splashy, expensive, and in some cases pretty movies. But like they're trash. And I think that's not something that I think Billy Wilder is going to say, because he doesn't want Cecil B. DeMille to be on his bad side. But I think you can read that in.
Speaking of executives, do you guys know the story about when Billy Wilder screened it for Louis Mayer?
Yes, I've heard that story.
And Louis Mayer basically said you should have stayed in Germany and been killed by the Nazis.
Oh my God.
Literally, it's what he said to him. And Billy Wilder responded, I'm Mr. Wilder, and you can go fuck yourself.
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
On the subject of people who are, of whom zero stories where that's why he was a nice person have ever been told. Louis B. Mayer.
Louis B. Mayer, yes. But that is one of my favorite Hollywood stories. Just Billy Wilder, like, go fuck yourself.
Makes Zanuck look like a mensch. So. But I want to make sure, Zev, you were the one who brought this. Do you have anything else that you want to make sure we chat about before we part ways?
I mean, again, I could probably, if I had more, we'll be here for another couple hours. So I should probably stop myself short a little bit. But the one thing I want to, just in terms of longevity of these two movies, I feel like, and this is again not denigrating Sunset Boulevard in any way. I wouldn't dare. I just feel like it has more prominence in the lives of young moviegoers, again, if they exist, than All About Eve does. And part of me fears that, even though All About Eve is such a heavily lauded movie, I fear that the Best Picture winner kind of, that comes with it, a little bit old Best Picture winner, kind of turns people off a little bit. And I don't want that to happen with a picture like this. And I want to say no, or maybe just the fact that, it's a lot of. Actually, I've noted this on Letterboxd. I'll say one more thing. That a lot of people, I think, as we grow up on Tarantino and other filmmakers like this, they tend to view good or great film dialogue as little more than just very realistic. And to me, that's like great, but All About Eve kind of says, well, what can we do beyond that? I mean, to such a, probably to one of the greatest extents in the history of Hollywood. But it just has, and Sunset Boulevard also had this, it just has such a love of language. It has a love of what you can do when you get just a group of incredibly sophisticated people just being so nasty to one another with such good word choices. And again, you brought up editing, just the way that Eve just goes back and forth, like, there's a line that cuts immaculately to Davis going, "Remind me to tell you about the time I looked into the heart of an artichoke," or something. And it's just, and that cut is so perfect.
It's a really good moment.
So for me in Eve, a love of language, it just moves with such a easy rhythm. And again, you don't notice the runtime when you watch either of these pictures, but. That's the last thing I'll say. I'll shut up now.
No, I will say something you just made me think about that kind of gets back to the question of, like, what are each of these movies doing? And, I embrace the maximalism of Sunset Boulevard. All About Eve is a movie about theater using very theatrical devices, blocking and dialogue and character beats. Sunset Boulevard is a very cinematic movie about cinema. And I think maybe that's what these two films are kind of jutting against, is that they are each about... they're not just about fame, they're not just about aging, they're about a form of American pop culture. And I think they're both really embracing, like, what makes that form of pop culture itself. So,
It's well put.
All right. I got one more thing I want to talk about on this.
Please do.
Okay. Now, as Tim definitely is aware, I am a big fan of professional wrestling.
Oh, yes. You teased this. Please.
There is a wrestler who goes by the name Toni Storm, who is a multi-time AEW Women's World Champion. And a few years ago, and I want to say it was in 2023, when one time she lost the world title, her character, on-screen character role, kind of snapped, and she started becoming like an old-time Hollywood starlet. And essentially, she renamed herself Timeless Toni Storm, and essentially became Norma Desmond as a wrestler.
Interesting.
Okay.
Including an old, washed-up wrestler named Luther, who's a big, kind of heavy-set bald man, became her butler and servant. And as this was happening, as she's now Norma Desmond, and she wins the belt back, an obsessive fan named Mariah May shows up, who she takes under her wing as her understudy. And for months, they work together. She's the champion. Mariah's kind of helping her. For a while, Mariah starts using Tony's old rock star gimmick as her own because she's such a big fan. Then finally, Mariah May wins what was called the Owen Hart Memorial Cup tournament, which gave her a title shot at Toni Storm's title. Tony comes out to celebrate with her, and she, of course, goes fully Eve, except this is pro wrestling, so she beats her to a bloody mess, throws Luther off a table. Turner Classic Movies tweeted out a photo of this beatdown of Mariah May holding Toni Storm's bloody head and said, "This is whatever happened to Baby Jane if it was written by directed by Roger Corman and written by Roger Ebert."
That's about right.
So yes, they literally had Norma Desmond as the character in All About Eve, but as pro wrestling.
That's amazing.
It is the best women's storyline, I think, in the history of mainstream U.S. women's wrestling.
Wow.
It is spectacular. Toni Storm is so good. This character.
All right.
Chin up.
Sounds like a movie.
And watch out for the shoe. It was cinema.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
so these movies, they continue to last in pop culture.
Excellent.
As will Showgirls.
As will Showgirls, in my heart, anyway, and on our
mine
website,
as well.
and our website.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you all for joining. This was a very fun conversation. We got to talk about 2 of the best movies ever made, and that's not never time well spent, or time ill spent, I should say. So, before we part ways, let us know. Do any of you have anything that you want to plug right now, Brian? Anything going on other than your continued well-being and health?
Kind of in that vein. Probably can put it on the show notes. I do have a GoFundMe because due to my recent illness, I don't know when I'm going to be able to go back to work.
Okay.
It's going to be at least a few weeks. I hate begging for money, but I also like paying bills and not starving.
For real.
Yep.
For real.
So,
understandably.
Be very happy to share that with everybody. So if you want to continue hearing Brian's voice on the show, please give what you can give.
Yep.
So, Cameron, how about yourself?
Nothing particular to plug other than my podcast, which actually at the moment is in the middle of a mid-season break, but as you've all heard before, it is called Stony Brook Reunion and is about 3 millennial women revisiting the Babysitter's Club book series. So if that interests you, I realize it is a very niche topic, but
we just spent 2 hours talking about 75-year-old movies. Niche is relative.
Yes, but it's a different niche, totally different niche in perhaps the same museum that we all live in. So if that interests you, you can just Google Stony Brook Reunion. It's on all the major podcast applications.
And Zev, once again, thank you for bringing this topic to us. Do you have anything that you want to plug?
Actually, for once, yes. So a couple of things. I just released an album of new mystery sort of true crime tracks. They're kind of mystery piano based. I'll put the link in the chat. I also just finished scoring a series of short films for a Toronto-based company called Lumita Productions. One of those, a sort of Hallmark horror comedy called Guilty Pleasures, was selected for a horror fest in Ottawa, so I'm very excited about that.
Very cool.
And then last, I am currently working as music assistant on a new musical that is premiering in LA in a couple of weeks, so that is very exciting, and a lot of work is on my plate right now, so I haven't had as much time for movie watching. That is
understandable. Well, thank you all for joining. As always, I am Tim Brayton. All I have to plug is that I have a website and you are at it. So, just keep on keeping on. Thank you all, as always, for joining us at Alternate Ending. Next week, Brendan and I are coming back with Bride of AE, where we're going to talk about continued adventures with horror movies. So be sure to check that out. Otherwise, again, check out that Patreon link. Be sure to check out that GoFundMe link in the show notes, and we will talk to you soon.